What you're going to hear from the president is the same thing you heard from him over the past several years, and that is that for far too long, people in this country felt like Washington was about the special interest and not about them. That's why they're frustrated.
I think we will gain a lot more seats because, frankly, I think it will show how tone deaf they were to the message that the voters in Massachusetts and across the country were trying to send.
I was hoping that, Coach, you were going to bring some books for Republicans and Democrats in Congress, maybe to get them to start playing like a team together.
President Obama meeting with the Lakers there, but earlier in the day he met with his middle-class task force to talk about proposals to help the middle class and to really shift the focus away from health care reform. What is happening with the agenda ahead of the State of the Union address? Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. Mara Liasson, national political correspondent of National Public Radio, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Mara.
Well, what's happening is the president always planned to pivot in the State of the Union address even earlier to a more relentless focus on the economy and jobs. He knew that voters were tired of hearing about health care all the time and wanted him to focus on their #1 concern. So that was already always in the works. What happened in Massachusetts just kind of made this all the more urgent and more of an emergency. The big question for Wednesday night is he will roll out these middle-class initiatives that he previewed today, but also how he will acknowledge what Massachusetts meant. It's one thing to be kind of defiant and not give up on your priorities. Nobody wants him to crumple and surrender, but he does have to show that something happened and a message was sent and he's absorbed it in some way. And that's what we're waiting to find out. And then, of course, there's the bigger question, which I don't think the White House has figured out yet, which is what does he do for health care?
He told ABC in an interview today that he is determined to continue to tackle health care reform with Congress. Take a listen to this.
The one thing I'm clear about is that I'd rather be a really good one-term president than a mediocre two-term president.
Went on to say he continues to fight. Charles.
Well, there's a third option he didn't consider, which is that he could be a mediocre one-term president, and that's what he's been thus far in his first year. And because mediocrity does not usually encourage the electorate to re-elect you, that might account for being a one-termer. I think what's even more astonishing than the result in Massachusetts last week was the Democrats' response over the weekend of how they understood the election. It was a marvel of obliviousness, obtuseness, and unbelievably condescending arrogance. We heard the president say that the reason that they suffered in Massachusetts is because he's been so busy doing all this good stuff for the American people, he hasn't had a chance to go out there and to communicate the shared values. This guy's been on the tube more than Regis. There's a guy who's given more interviews, press conferences, and speeches than any president's the first year in history. There's a guy who gave 29 speeches on health care. Then Gibbs is asked on the Fox News Sunday about the agenda that Brown had laid out in winning the Massachusetts race. Very specific, including, he didn't say, I'm uneasy about the health care proposal, I'm going to reform it or improve it. He said, I'm going to oppose it and I'm going to kill it. Gibbs says, well, that's not the reason that the people voted as they did in Massachusetts. They were angry against the banks. I mean, this is unbelievable. Explain to me how anger against the banks translates into a vote against Obamacare, particularly since if anybody had the bank issue, it was Coakley, who was for the bank tax. Brown actually opposed it.
Steve, State of the Unions are always usually a shopping list of proposals that the president lays out. Today, he's talking about boosting tax credits for families caring for children and aging relatives, reducing the minimum monthly payments on federal student loans, some changes in the IRAs. These aren't big game-changer ideas, right? No, they're not,
and I think one of the real questions about Wednesday night is, will the president come out and play small ball, try to refocus the debate on things that the American people could sort of grasp and say, look, the president is actually doing something, and we can see that he's doing something on our behalf. But I think he would be doing so as a misread of the public sentiment here. There's one clear message from Massachusetts and New Jersey and Virginia and the polling on health care and the polling on the economy, the president's approval rating, the Tea Parties. It's that the American public doesn't want a left-wing president. It's really not much more complicated than that at this point. And the problem I think that the president faces right now is that he has been a left-wing president. It's what he believes. I think he fundamentally is, he shares liberal views, strongly liberal views. And if he were to now somehow try to recast himself as a populist, he would in effect be trying to give voice to what people believe. He can't do that because people are opposed to his agenda, so he would have to sort of fight against his own agenda.
Mark, can he tack to the center like Bill Clinton did after the '94 election?
I think there's certain ways he can do that. He can call the Republicans bluff. He can submit a jobs bill that has tons of tax cuts in it, payroll tax holiday for small businesses, and see if the Republicans will vote for it. He can offer health care plans that have medical malpractice in it and buying health care across state lines, actually put Republican initiatives in it and then dare them to vote for it. I think they wouldn't vote for it anyway. But I think that to use the Bill Clinton analogy can be misleading because Bill Clinton was facing a Congress controlled by the other party. You can triangulate if you have a partner of the other party to work with against your own unpopular party in Congress. That's not what President Obama has. The Democrats have 59 votes in the Senate. They're still in charge. The Republicans have the best of all worlds. They can now absolutely block anything, and they don't have responsibility for government because they're not in the majority anywhere yet. So I don't think it's so simple about moving to the center. What happens with health care is a big question.
Because they don't know. They seem to have a muddled message here, right?
I mean, I think the only thing, Nancy Pelosi does not appear to have the votes to push the Senate plan through the House at this time. That appears to be the only option that they've got.
And this negotiation with Republicans, is that a starter?
I think it's a non-starter. The Republicans are not going to want to save the bacon of the Obama administration, and the Obama administration, particularly the left in the party, is not going to want a negotiation with the Republicans. That's going to have to include tort reform. That's going to be absolutely a requirement. And you think the Democrats are going to oppose and defy the trial lawyers? I think not.
Well, if they get health care, they would.
As confident as you,
health care, I doubt it.
as confident as you were that health care reform was going to pass, are you shocked that we are sitting here in this position right now?
Well, in the absence of an earthquake in Massachusetts, in an unexpected election result, yes, it would have passed. It was saved at the last minute. I don't see a way in which the Democrats can actually recoup and pass anything resembling what now exists in the Senate or the House.
Agree?
Yeah, I think that's right. But Gibbs said today, he was asked, are you going to try to pass something as comprehensive as what the Senate passed? And he said yes.
The outcry isn't going away over the handling of the man charged with trying to blow up an airliner on Christmas Day. The panel weighs in on that 3 minutes from